people. Um, Anywho, let's get this show on the road. Um, uh, what I'm trying to show here is about pH. And a lot of people don't understand how it affects everything, yada, yada, yada. We'll try to give you real fish examples, alright? I'm going to try to keep this very short. So anyway, let's go for it. Good slide, huh? Give me credit. Alright, what is pH and how does it affect your fish? Well, y'all could read most of this. I mean, why should I? You know, um, obviously pH is a 7 is a neutral, you know, and that's basically what it is. Below 7 is acidic, and below or above 7 is alkaline. Um, Obviously, we all know that fish have to work in one space or the other, or they will die. Right? All right. All right. What lowers pH? And again, every aquarium is completely freaking different. I can have two aquariums side by side with the same types of, whatever, um, and this and that, and the pH will differ. Now, one thing I should have mentioned before I went here, if you measure pH in the morning, evenings, or straight out of the tap and wait 24 hours, you're going to get a different reading. Okay? It's just a fact of the game, man. A fact of the game. Googly, muggly. So anyway, what typically lowers pH is what I probably should have put up there. Peat moss, driftwood, mopane, leaves, any type of leaves. Because they release tannins. And right there, it will soften as well as acidify your water. And I'm not going to get all the technical terms, but you can read it there. That's by, you know, getting your carbonates in the water. It binds up the carbonates and, blah, blah, blah. Now, one thing with any of this stuff, it may, can, will stain your water, with the wood. So keep that in mind. Whoops. What raises pH? Frequent water changes. But keep in mind, again, with water changes, here's what I would challenge each and every one of y'all to do. Your water out of the tap is not going to be the same as your water 24 hours from there, after it has the time to off gas and all that. So, put in the, you know, comments below, basically, that, okay, my water out of tap was 7.8. I let it sit for 24 hours and now it's 7.2. Okay? Keep that in mind, you know, before you ever think about the fish that you're going to keep and blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, frequent water changes will affect your pH, but maybe temporarily. Now, I keep a 55 or 35 gallon, you know, bucket or trash can, in the other room or whatever, and it sits for a day or two, so it has time to off gas. So the pH that comes out of the tap is not necessarily the pH you're going to get. Anywho, let's keep going. Um, but frequent water changes will typically raise pH, but maybe temporarily. Keep that in mind. Anything you use, man. Limestone, crushed coral, oyster shell. Obviously, that's going to raise it. Now, does it raise it immediately? See? We get into questions there, don't we? And how long does it raise it? Does it raise it over time? Does it raise it immediately? Not really. Shells, calcium, tums. Again, those will raise pH. But is it quick? Is it whatever? We're going to boil all this down. Baking soda, I do not recommend because, oh my goodness, you'd have to stay on top of that, you know, a lot. So anyway, one size does not fit all, alright? But anyway, you can see down here on these pH levels, okay? Um, the optimum is 6.5 to 9.0. Now, 9.0 is on the extreme, 6.5 is on the low. You probably want to aim for a 7. Now, most tropical fish, and if we're dealing with guppies and this and that, man, we probably want to aim for a 7.2 or higher, all the way to 7.8, if possible. But, one thing that people don't understand is if you order fish from the West Coast, Google it, uh, they might be a 6.6, and you're bringing them to the East Coast where you might have a, oh my goodness, I don't know, an 8.2. You know, there's an acclimation that they may or may not survive. That's a huge freaking difference. But once fish become accustomed to any pH level, they're fine. Um, I don't know. I can't think of ever that I've ever had a fish come into my fish room and they died from the acclimation. And again, my acclimation is plop and drop, okay? So it's just the initial shock. But again, I don't know. I've sent fish to California. I've sent them to Washington, and I've never heard from people saying that he died. But I use the plop and drop method. Maybe they acclimated. I don't know. But anyway, let's just get past all this crap. All right. Example: what might affect tanks? Now, GH general hardness, not a huge big deal on that. Now, carbonate hardness is a little different. Carbonate hardness affects the GH. You're like, what is that, Scott? What is it? You need to look it up. All right. But basically, carbonate hardness, carbonate hardness directly affects GH, which kind of directly affects pH, if it makes sense. So, in other words, the more of a buffer you have in there, which could be these past examples, real quick, like limestone or crushed coral or oyster shell. What happens is you have that in there, your tank will slowly bleed those into the system. I forgot to add cuttlebone. Cuttlebone is a great thing. But how much does it leach? Blah blah blah. But over time, no, calcium. Yeah, that would cover it. Over time, these leach into your system, which kind of is your carbon hardness. Again, that can be affected by water changes, yada yada yada. Your general hardness, I don't want to explain all this crap tonight. I really don't. It's directly affected off of that, and then it kind of goes to your pH. But anyway, here's the method to the madness. All right, what raises or lowers, pH, KH, and GH? Well, salt water doesn't have a lot of KH in there, therefore it doesn't have a lot of GH, therefore it doesn't have a lot of pH. Okay? Um, and you can kind of see how these things work. CO2, I'm not sure why that is there. I don't ever recommend baking soda because the problem is if you get your fish acclimated to your water, let's just keep it that way. Okay? Let's not screw around by adding baking soda. Let's not screw around by adding um, leaves. Let's not screw around by anything else. You know, driftwood, blah, blah, blah. If you got them acclimated, just let them go, people. Let them go. This is a long chart to explain everything I've told you. Okay? Um, But up here, changes in KH will always result in changes in pH. That is true. KH and GH are independent. Yeah, KH is your buffer, GH is your hardest, which in effect, does your pH, and then eventually total dissolved solids. But whatever, y'all gonna figure all this crap out, okay? Um, so the whole moral of this entire stupid argument I've had is quite simple. You can't really. You can buffer everything. You can plan everything out. It doesn't matter. What it just boils down to, people, is you have to simply adapt fish to your water and not change it. In other words, if you're going to constantly throw in your water coral chips to try to raise the GH, and then you get your KH up there, with baking soda or peat moss or plants or whatever, up to your pH that your fish accept. I, it's a recipe for disaster, man. Googly moogly. It's not gonna work. You know? I mean, if you got one or two fish tanks, yeah, play the chemistry all day long. No biggie, okay? No biggie. If you have buffers and you know, in a box and this and that, sure. But if you're trying to run a fish room like I do, man, I don't have time for all that crap. It is what it is. They're gonna adjust to the pH over time, over water changes, over whatever. And I'll always, do the same thing I've always done, honestly, flop and drop. So, in other words, do your fish aquarium like you should. Make sure there's make sure you do your water changes. Make sure you do everything you're supposed to freaking do. And as long as you get a lot of live plants in there, which helps, which right here, plants over long term, helps KH. But it doesn't matter because maybe the plants become algae, and you're removing the algae. Well, technically, you're removing the plants, you know. I mean, it's just a never-ending cycle. So, anywho, we'll jump off here. But it basically all boils down to adjust your fish to your water temperature and be done with it, or water parameters and be done with it. If you're going to constantly jerk around and try to adjust pH up and pH down, I've seen those ingredients, and try to throw in things like limestone and coral chips to try to get your general hardness up, or put your KH up, which eventually affects your pH. Well, what happens when you don't do that crap? Or you go in the hospital and your wife doesn't know what to do? Basically, adjust the fish to your tank parameters as is. All right. Makes sense, people? All right. Later.